Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Atari A to Z Flashback, a series of short playthroughs of the 150 games that make up Atari Flashback Classics for Nintendo Switch. Today's game is Warlords. This was a 1980 release by Atari into the arcades, and it was originally developed as a prototype called Castles and Kings. The original prototype for this was housed in an enormous cabinet that was based on the Sprint 4-player cabinet. You remember we saw Sprint 2 a few weeks back. The Sprint 4 cabinet was absolutely enormous to accommodate 4 players, and the original version of Castles and Kings was in a very similar cabinet. But it was determined this would probably be impractical to both mass produce and to install in various arcades just because it took up so much room. So the idea was kind of retooled and put into 2 different types of cabinet. There was an upright cabinet, which was in black and white, and there was a tabletop cocktail cabinet that was in colour. The upright cabinet allowed 2 players to play together, and the tabletop cocktail cabinet allowed 4 players to play together. In the upright 2-player mode, the 2 players worked together as a team, whereas in the 4-player mode, 3 and 4-player games were a free-for-all. But if you were playing with 2 people on the cocktail cabinet, it was still a team game where you worked together against the computer-controlled players. So Warlords is kind of a variation on the Breakout and Pong formula. Atari actually did a much earlier game called Quadra Pong, where there were 4 bats around the playfield, and Warlords is kind of an evolution of that. So there's 4 players in corners of the screen, and you have to bounce the ball around and try and break down the other player's walls. So it's a pretty simple concept, but it was very well regarded back in the day for being a highly competitive game that sort of introduced a lot of things like trash talking and people getting really competitive with one another. So it was sort of a fixture in a lot of arcades, and it had a very well received Atari 2600 port as well. So I'm not super familiar with this game, so it's going to be interesting to explore it a bit for not quite the first time, but pretty much for the first time today. So let's go play Warlords.
Okay, here we are with Warlords. Not a game I have a great deal of experience with, but one that I know is pretty well regarded from over the years. So I'm obviously just going to be playing it single player for today because it's just me here. But you can play this with up to 4 people. And in fact, this version on Atari Flashback Classics, you can either play it in the upright format, like we've got here, which allows up to 2 of you to play at the same time, or alternatively, you can go into the options menu, switch it to the cocktail cabinet, and that means you then have the tabletop version that 4 people can play with. Let's stick with the upright one for now. Since we're just going to be playing it single player anyway. You'll also notice that the upright version has got this overlay on it as well, so it sort of gives it that foresty background and the coloured areas of the screen and that sort of thing. So, alright, let's have a go. So press player start, and then anyone else who wants to join in can also press start at this point. Alright, here we go. So this is a paddle controlled game. Using the paddle controller, you control the shields on the outside of your castle, like this. So I am the blue one, if that wasn't already obvious. And your aim is to knock down all your opponent's walls and destroy their symbol inside, which is not an easy thing to do. Now, as well as just hitting the ball, like we got here, you can also catch it by pressing the button and then release it, which sends it off more powerfully. But obviously, timing that is quite important. One thing we'll notice as well is that every so often, another ball will appear, which is one way that this distinguishes itself from things like Breakout and Pong and so on. Is you have a bit of multi-ball action going on. There's our second ball. Annoyingly, the computer players do seem to gang up on you somewhat. As you notice that any time they catch a ball, it always seems to be me that they aim for. I mean, not a massive issue because there's no end to this game, so you're basically just playing for score if you're playing in single player anyway, but it is a little bit unfair. But this was primarily intended as a 4-player competitive game anyway, so... Oh, we might be able to take down Pink. Oh no! Spoke too soon, didn't I? Well then, let's try again. Alright, bring it on, Dragon Boy. I like how the background of this is pixelated, despite it being sort of printed on the arcade machine, being an overlay or a background, one or the other. I don't know if that image was actually pixelated on the original Warlords arcade machine. I've never seen an original Warlords arcade machine, but yeah, I don't know. The fact it's pixelated here kind of gives it a bit of additional retro charm, I guess. Not going too well at the minute. Catch and throw. Yeah, so catching it does do significantly more damage if you can actually hit a bit of wall with it. I don't know if it's in your interest to try and catch it every time, maybe. I suppose that can then be reflected back at you and do damage back to you, so it's kind of a risk versus reward thing, I guess. Oh, I'm not confident at this point. Oh no! I am bad at this game. Let's try again. Again. See, this game may be monstrously difficult, but it is pretty fun. And just the speed of it kind of sets it apart from a lot of other games that are like it. I mean, I know Breakout gets pretty quick, but that sort of gradually accelerates as you play, whereas this one has kind of an interesting pace to it, where it speeds up and slows down as you play. So it keeps things interesting. It's kind of closer to what you'd expect from an actual sport. Like if you imagine sort of more recent, more modern tennis games, for example, they have a lot more in the way of variation of speed and trajectory and all that sort of thing. Yeah, first time I played this, I thought it was a little bit unfair with how tiny your paddle is, because like that shield there is even tinier than the paddle in Super Breakout. But in this, you can sort of, I don't know, it's like kind of hard to describe. You can sort of swing and hit the ball in this one. You can kind of swing through the ball rather than just having to be in its path when it comes for you. And that's quite a satisfying feeling that, again, sets it apart from a lot of similar games of the period. Oh god, I'm going to die again. I want to defeat at least one of them, just so I can say I've done it. Still haven't beat my own high score either. Let's try again. Maybe I should be catching it more. That's it, you just knock it around a bit. Just let me tonk it into your walls while you fight it out amongst yourselves. Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning that the upright cabinet for this was actually a black and white screen. And if you look carefully while the ball's moving around, you can actually see that the colours are created with an overlay again. as they were in a lot of early Atari games. So like when the ball crosses over into the various corners, you can see it changing colour to the colour of the walls because it's going beneath that particular part of the overlay. That for me is like a sort of really interesting part of early arcade game cabinet design. Just because it was quite a creative solution to the technology not quite being there to do full colour graphics at the time. And although some of those early black and white games from Atari are pretty fun, I mean there's no denying how vibrant the colours look in this. It's immediately striking, very attractive. Ooh, 3 balls. I don't fancy my chances. I've beaten my high score though. Come on, just smash one of them. Just one of them. Just one of them. Let me kill one of them. Oh, I'm vulnerable. And I'm scared. Oh, 1 down. Beautiful. Oh, and I'm dead. I got a new high score though. And you have this horrendously awkward high score entry mechanism where you have to sort of swing the paddle around. There we go. Actually, I say awkward. The paddle controls in this Switch version, they're not quite as awkward as some of the other paddle-based games in this, because you've got a fairly limited range of movement. You can actually get away with just pushing in the direction you want your shield to be facing. And it feels a little bit more natural than in some of the other games. So like here, I'm pushing left when I want it to be on that bottom left corner like that. And I'm pushing up when I want it to be there. Up and right when I want it to be over there. Yeah, it feels quite natural actually. Which is good, because like I've said, with the small size of the shield sprites in this, you need that precision. In order to actually be able to hit the damn thing. This is an interesting game actually, because there's an element of strategy to it as well that might not be immediately apparent, but sort of as well as just responding to the ball coming in, you need to concentrate on which parts of your wall are most vulnerable and make sure to kind of give them a bit more protection. Like if you look at how purple is handling this at the minute, purple's very vulnerable over on their left-hand side. And so they're spending most of their time covering that side there to make sure that they don't get hit over there. But then that means we can gradually... Oh, I'm not going to survive this, am I? Oh, no. I was going to say we could keep gradually chipping away at that until we got there, but no, I got first. One more try. Last try. Right, come on, dragon. It's really hard to hit that initial serve. It's because it comes flying at you so quickly. I wonder if there's actually any connection between this and Rampart, which was a later Atari Games production. Rampart is sort of one of my all-time favourites. It's a multiplayer game that my friends and I still bust out occasionally just because it's really good fun. And although it's not an identical idea to this, the concept of smashing down your opponent's castle walls is quite similar. I wonder if Rampart is sort of thought of as a successor to this in some ways, or if it's just coincidence. Probably coincidence, but you know, I like to ponder these things. It's not something I've looked into. Rampart, although I like the game, it's not one that I've actually looked into the history of all that much. Might be worth doing at some point. It's probably an interesting story behind it. There's been an interesting story behind most of these games, which is why I've really enjoyed doing this series, is just finding out those stories, finding out about the people involved with them, where they came from, what they did. All about Dave Toyer's nightmares. The man had problems. But I can understand. Sort of the late 70s and early 80s were a period of great paranoia, so I can forgive someone for being pretty anxious about the whole thing. I mean, I know there's lots of people who are pretty anxious about the times we're living in right now. One more go. This really is the last one this time. Right, bring it on, dragon. Blech, blech. There have, I believe, been a few remakes of this over the years. As I recall, I think there might have been... There was a period in the PS1 era when Atari was trying to do sort of upgraded and enhanced versions of a lot of their games. I have a feeling it might have been one of those that got this... Warlords might have been one of the games that got that treatment. I'm not sure offhand. I know there was definitely an enhanced sort of high definition fancy pants version on Xbox Live Arcade that I've never played. But going by the other sort of enhanced Atari games that are on there, like the version of Missile Command is pretty cool. Yeah, it would have basically been the same game as the original, only very pretty. Which is fine, I can see how that would work. And just imagine playing this with sort of fancy particle effects and explosions and maybe a thumping techno soundtrack. Oh dear, this is not much of a last hurrah, I'm afraid. Leave me alone. I'm just trying to live here in my nice blue castle. And you bastards are just coming along and knocking all my bloody walls down. Leave. Oh! Hello. I feel... Yes, I was going to say, I feel I'm probably going to be next. And I didn't get any points for that kill because it wasn't me. I wasn't the last person to hit it before they died. Anyway, that's Warlords. As always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.